just wanted to add and really underscore an important point to one of my previous videos entitled Proper Arm Swing for Running Long Distances, which was based on an incredibly informative article written by Jay Grunick, who's a running technique expert as well as a Feldenkrais practitioner. That article is entitled Keep Your Hands Close to Your Heart When You Run. The article, which is linked below the video in the description box, along with my video about that article, provides very unique insights as to why most East African distance runners carry their hands much higher, close to their heart, or even as high as their collarbone and neck when they moved up from the 3,000 meter and the 5,000 meter to the marathon. So when most East African runners were 5,000 meter or 3,000 meter specialists, they tend to carry their hands lower. But when these runners moved up to the 10,000 meter into the marathon, their hand carriage is significantly higher and their elbows stick out much more. In her article, Jay lays out why for running longer distances, keeping your hands close to your chest is very effective for many reasons. For instance, she explains how a higher hand carriage that swings towards the midline, not down along the sides, helps you lean forward easier and it naturally shortens your stride length, which are one of the many reasons a higher hand carriage that punches the midline seems to sustain much better for running longer distances. In this video, I want to discuss where you should keep your elbows while your hands are held close to your chest when you are running long distances. Because I've been getting lots of questions about when I keep my hands close to my chest, do I also keep my elbows tucked in and then glide my elbows alongside my torso and then curve my wrist inwards to make my hands remain close to the heart when I run? Great question, but according to Jay, and just by observing how most East African distance runners swing their elbows and position their hands when they run, the answer is absolutely no. You don't want to squeeze your elbows to your sides and you don't want to curve your wrist inwards in efforts to keep your hands close to your chest when you run, because according to Jay, bending your hand inwards too much stretches the tendons in your wrist and your hands and may overstrain your forearm. In fact, Jay suggests that a neutral wrist gives you a neutral hand, and this neutral wrist, neutral hand alignment is exactly what we see in most Kenyan and Ethiopian distance runners. With regards to how you should swing your elbows, Jay strongly implies to do whatever it takes to make sure your hands stay close to your heart when you run. So if that means sticking your elbows out a notch, like Kipchoge and the vast majority of the East African distance runners, then you do that too. In fact, she wrote, your hands should stay close to your chest with your elbows sticking out as much as necessary to make this easy. If you are used to pulling your elbows in close to your sides, this movement will feel exaggerated at first and it will take a lot of experimentation to get the hang of it. Not only that, when you squeeze your elbows to your sides, what position do your hands want to default to? Your hands now go further out away from your chest and further out away in front of your entire body. This is not how most East African distance runners swing their elbows and position their hands. Rather, they keep their hands as close as possible to the chest with their wrist and hands in a neutral position, not curved in too much inwards. This seems to be the dominant order of arm swing mechanics that results in a space between their elbows and their sides. You too can achieve that level of mechanical sufficiency by sticking your elbows out a notch, because that's what it's going to take to enable you to keep your hands close to your chest without overstraining your forearm. And Jay also mentions that when you squeeze your elbows alongside your torso, it may restrict your breathing. And if you try it yourself, if you run with your hands and wrists curved inwards while you are trying to keep your elbows tight along your sides, you instantly feel restricted air intake and almost a heaviness in your chest. Whereas if you slightly stick your elbows out, you can instantly feel a relief in your chest and more airspace volume, and breathing becomes much easier. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to hit the thumbs up button as well as the subscribe button if you haven't already, where you will get more evidence-based information on the hot button debate forfeit strike running versus heel strike running. And of course, you can also support Run Forfeit through PayPal as well, which is also linked down below the video in the description box. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Have fun out there on the roads and trails. Bye for now.